someone tells you you're not being reasonable, that's when you know you're actually on the right track. Okay, so an example would be of reasonableness is you want a particular relationship with, let's just say, a woman or a man, whatever, right? Let's just use a woman. So, and you want this beautiful woman who's smart and is basically synced up to you in your life and what you're trying to accomplish in life, right? And it turns out that you find out that she has an issue with you working late, or she has an issue with you taking risks, using credit cards to do things as an entrepreneur, whatever, right? She has a disagreement with it. At that point, somebody who's reasonable would be like, oh, okay, I understand, that's just how women are, and that I'll accept it, and it's okay, and let's just kind of deal with it, right? And then that person continues to deal with it for their whole entire life, right? 20 years, 30 years, same relationship, dealing with a constant kind of disagreement about money or work ethic or whatever the case may be. The flip side of that is you have somebody that's not reasonable, and they're like, okay, I'm not going to be reasonable about this. So here's the deal. Either we're going to be on the same page or we're going to be friends apart. That would be somebody who's not reasonable. They're willing to say, hey, this is what I want. This is important to me. If you've been very forthright about it the entire time, then the other person is just not in agreement. So it's like, hey, look, I've said this to you from the beginning, that this is what our agreement was in terms of my work ethic and how I take risks. And if you're not in agreement with it, well then, you know what? We shouldn't be together. We should just be friends. That person would have to be not reasonable to say, hey, I don't want this. It's not what I want. This is what I want. And they're willing to make the tough decisions to have what they want, and rather than settling for something that is half of what they want. They're just willing to not settle for that.
Yeah, that's tough, making those tough decisions, right?
It's very tough. It requires a lot of stamina, it requires a lot of courage, it requires a lot of self-confidence, because you have to be able to have the ability to say, I'll find something different, I'll recreate it. It's like your business blows up and you're like, oh my God, my business blew up. Okay, cool. Well, you could cry about it, or you go build another one. So the guy of your dreams or girl of your dreams walks out on you, find another one. You have to be able to have the courage and the self-confidence to say, hey, you know what? I did it once, I can do it again. It is just like a business. Like people that start businesses, they have to have the ability to be like, okay, I did it once, I'll do it again and again and again and again and again and again. And you have to have the ability to do that. And that does take a level of like self-confidence and stamina to be able to go through that period, because everybody else is going to be like, no, you're making the wrong decision, it's not correct, and you're being too hard-headed, you're being stubborn, and you're not being reasonable. If someone tells you you're not being reasonable, that's when you know you're actually on the right track. Like I actually had a win on that myself, because my whole life everyone's over telling me, you're not a reasonable person, you're totally unreasonable, you're not a reasonable person. Yeah, no, I mean, it's the only way I get stuff done. If I was reasonable, I wouldn't have the company that I have today. I wouldn't have the wife I have today. I wouldn't have offices in Columbia and Maryland, 300 employees, largest sleep testing provider in the country. I wouldn't have that if I was reasonable. If I was reasonable, I would probably still just be in the local area. I'd probably be with a girl that I don't really want to be with, that's kind of half-assing it, and I'd probably have 10 employees. It's the truth. That's the difference between the person that has the things that they want. Again, this is defined as for yourself, right? What you know you can have in terms of your own success. So if you don't have what you think you should have in terms of your own success, well, then a big part of that is you're just being super reasonable. And if nobody around you is telling you that you're being reasonable, then you need to kick it up a notch. Like really need to kick it. Like you want people to hate on you. You want people to tell you, you're unreasonable. You're not a reasonable person.
I mean, that doesn't mean you're going to go off and do dangerous.
No, it doesn't mean you're going to go off and be dangerous. But look, you're not going to accomplish anything in life that's worthwhile by just everyone's going to agree with you. I have investors in Blackstone that didn't agree with me. They were like, this business isn't going to work. The model ain't going to work. Okay. It works. I think it works. It's one of those things. It's like, there's been very few people in my life that have ever really agreed with me. Very few people. Like I count on one hand the amount of people that actually agree with me. Most people don't agree with me. That's how few and far between being unreasonable is.